continue talking about the Shema, and then share some of today's chitas. So we talked about the first paragraph of the Shema and the Hafta, which, as we said, that comes first because that accepts upon ourselves the yoke of heaven. We accept God upon ourselves as King. The second paragraph, Ayam Shema, we talked about, that is already hearing. It's the first paragraph is primarily love. The second paragraph is primarily fear, and the second paragraph is also about accepting upon ourselves the yoke of the commandments, the responsibility to fulfill God's decrees and will. And then we go to the third paragraph of the Shema, the parsha of Tzitzit. The parsha of Tzitzit, the reason we read that parsha, that paragraph, is because Tzitzit is a unique mitzvah in that it says that in that paragraph we read in the Shema, we say that when we see our tzitzis, it will remind us of all the commandments. So now that we've accepted God as our King, now that we accepted upon ourselves to fulfill His commandments, so now we have a mitzvah, the mitzvah of tzitzit, which reminds us of all of God's commandments. Right? How does tzitzis remind us of God's commandments? So we need a little math here. We have 613 commandments, right? The word tzitzit, the word itself, tzitzit, is tzaddik, the numerical value is 600, because tzaddik is 90, yud is 10, so that's 100. Another tzaddik is 90, and another yud, that's 10, so that's another 100, so we're at 200. And the last letter of the word tzitzit, the fifth letter, is taf, which is 400. So that is 90 plus 10 plus 90 plus 10 plus 400, doing it the most complicated way, is 600. How do we get to 613? Because on our tzitzit, on the corners, we have, you'll notice, 8 strings, right? You count 8 strings and 5 knots. 5 knots. So the 5 knots, 8 strings, 8 plus 5 is 13, plus 600 would make it 613. So when we see our tzitzit, it reminds us of the commandments. By the way, and when we say the Shema, so in the morning we're wearing our talit, we're wearing our tzitzit, and we hold the tzitzit, and then we kiss them, and every time we mention the tzitzit. In the evening Shema, we don't wear a talit, and we don't hold tzitzit, and we don't kiss them. Why is it? Because as we say in the Shema, Uri item oto, you have to see them. They serve as a reminder when you can see them. At night, it's dark. You can't see at night. So the reminder is not as strong. So we wear the talit during the day. That's the requirement hours of tzitzit is during the day. And we conclude with also mentioning Ani Hashem Elokechem Asher Hotzeiti Etchem Me'eretz Mitzrayim, God who took us out of Egypt. And we talked a lot about this around Passover time, which is that we're required every day to recall the exodus of Egypt. So in the parsha of Tzitzit, we have the double benefit of having a mitzvah that recalls all the 613 commandments, which we've accepted upon ourselves and willing to do, as well as the mitzvah of recalling the exodus of Egypt, which we're called upon to do every single day. I am God who took you out of Egypt. And we finish with Hashem Elokechem Emet. And if you recall, we talked about why we repeat those words. And the word Emet is really part of the next paragraph. It's part of the blessing after the Shema. It's not part of the Shema. It's not part of that paragraph. And we discussed the fact that the Shema has 245 words, and there are 248 limbs of the body, and every word, when we say it with intention, brings healing to another limb of the body. So to complete the full 248, we repeat the last 3 words, Ani Hashem Elokechem. So we say Ani Hashem Elokechem, and then we repeat again, Ani Hashem Elokechem. And why Emet? Because here we have an opportunity to quote, as it were, a verse from the prophets, which is Hashem Elokechem Emet, that God, your God, is true. And so we have the word Emet so close to Ani Hashem Elokechem, we put them together, we combine them, and like that we also, the word Emet, truth, which really belongs to the next paragraph, we can also apply it to this statement that I am God, your God, and that is Emet, that is truth. Okay, so that's